Welcome to Behind the DM Screen. It is March of 2026. We are three DMs talking about our games and helping each other out. I'm Jeff Greiner. With me is Mike Shea. Say hi, Mike.
Hello.
And subbing in for Sam, we have Ismael Alvarez. Say hi.
Hello.
So, we've got three of our usuals, just in a slightly different permutation than we oftentimes have. So, and I'm gonna get to be the first one to start us off. So I'm gonna talk about my games to start us off, and then Mike will share all of the many problems he's having with his games, and then Ish will fix all of those problems because he is the perfect DM.
Awesome. I look forward to it. I need it.
So, as I've discussed in recent, I guess, the last year or so, I have been running Phandelver and Below. You know, that thing with the Shattered Obelisk. And we are, I mentioned this last month. I don't think you were with us last month, were you, Mike?
I don't think so.
I don't think so. So, I mentioned this last month, but we're kind of in the end game. You reach a point in this adventure where you've taken, you've created the rift in space, and that's taking you to the specific little corner of the far realm that is the domain of Ilvash, the godlet, who is like a remnant of the god Ilthanine, that was left behind when Ilthanine went to the material plane and became a god. Because I guess there's no gods in the far realm. So Ilthanine, the god, who was the god of mind flayers or whatever, like traveled from the far realm to the plains so that it could become a god, and left behind a little bit of himself in the far realm that has slowly over the millennia grown into the godlet of Ilvash, and Ilvash has this little domain. My players now have gone. So Ilvash's domain is broken up into two parts. One part is the Briny Maze. It is this little, medium-sized dungeon that is not even vaguely, completely in the shape of a big brain. And there's actually like different mechanical and magical effects depending on which lobe of the brain you're in. And then you get to the right area from there, and there is a 6-mile swim through cerebral fluid that you can breathe in with some sort of predator. You get the sense that there's large predator swimming around in there, and you can try to be sneaky for 6 miles and hope that it doesn't find you or whatever. My players managed to be sneaky and get all the way to the portal at the bottom of the 6-mile expanse and get out before I guess spoiler. I don't know. We've been talking about the whole adventure.
Yeah, right. It's the end of the adventure. Yeah.
But they don't know this yet. But it is a purple worm that's swimming around in there.
Is the brain alive?
The brain. I mean, it is living tissue.
Like, are you like going around inside of a giant mind flayer?
Not that you're
brain?
Told. Well, no. In fact, because there are some creatures.
That's too bad.
There are some creatures inside of the brain that like burrowed in from the outside, and it's just a brain floating around out in the far realm.
God.
So
cool.
But yeah, there's a small pack of flumps that have burrowed their way in. There's some Yugoloths that have found their way in, and all kinds of things.
It's a Bolton brain.
What's that?
It's a Bolton. You know what a Bolton brain is? There was a guy that was like, if the universe is basically infinite, then at certain points in existence, a brain will just form out of nothingness. Oh. Just the odds are there, and so there's this idea of like it'll just form and then it'll immediately explode because it's in outer space, right?
Right.
It's called a Bolton brain.
I see. So yeah, and it was interesting. So we actually had one of the most fun and difficult fights, at least for most of the players, I think, 2 weeks ago. inside of the brain. There's a spot where there's like these doors inside the brain, and in order to open the doors, there's like these metal rods elsewhere in the dungeon. You have to touch the metal rods, and a current runs through you, and it opens the doors, but they're not in the same place as the doors. And so they found the door. They figured out, oh, we need to go back and do something with those rods. We left some monsters in between that we just sort of left behind because they were just spiders hanging out in the brain, and we don't want to deal with having to sneak by them again. We'll send the rogue to go activate those rods and come back. He has, you may have missed this because I talked about it, I think, last month, Mike. He has the Eye of Vecna, which means he has x-ray vision and can see through the door. It's like, oh, there's nothing there, no problem. So I'll just run back real quick, activate these rods, it'll open the door, and then I'll come back and we'll go through the whole thing. He went back and opened the doors, and then bobbing down the hallway into the chamber on the other side of the door, so it wasn't there before when he used the x-ray vision, is the beholder. So on top of that, so one player is not with the party. We figured out, even being a rogue that could triple move, he's at least 3 rounds away from getting there. One player wasn't there that session, so it is 3 characters versus the beholder. And boy, was it like the rogue character triple moving got there, was going to be able to act finally on the next turn, and that's when they finally dropped the beholder. Everybody was almost dead at that point, and the only reason they survived is that they actually recruited a bunch of the flumps to come with them. and there's 7 hit point things. Like, the beholder was like, I was randomly determining who the beholder shot with the eye rays, and every round it was 2 or 3 flumps, and so they were just sort of fodder, taking up shots from the eye rays so that everybody else could survive. I'm pretty sure if they had taken the hits from those 7 eye rays instead of the flumps, at least one character would have dropped. So it was a tough fight. They had fun. They felt bad about recruiting these flumps and immediately leading them to their death. But that worked out okay. And then they worked their way through the briny maze. They went down the big liquid space thing until they found the portal that takes them to the second part of Ilvash's domain. The second part of Ilvash's domain, what is it, like the Endless Void or something? I think the whole area is called Beyond a Lightless Star, but the Endless Void is just a sort of an endless expanse of nothingness. But there are these fleshy nodules floating around in it, and you randomly determine which 2 fleshy nodules are within sight of the other ones. And because you're in this void, it's like the old school astral plane where you can fly or move at by thought, right? So that you could, if you can see the other nodule, you could fly off to it. Now, if you don't see the nodule you want to get to, could you fly off in a random direction and hope you run into it? Sure, but it's an endless void. Odds are you'll just get lost in it and attacked by all kinds of horrible things. So you wait and you hop from nodule to nodule. And so they've been exploring that, trying to find the nodule that has the prisoners in it that they're trying to rescue from Phandalin. When you first arrive, you come to you appear on one nodule that has a big crystal dome on it, and inside is a bunch of they're shield guardians, but they're statues that look like big mind flayers or whatever that you fight off. And then attached to the walls are some of the prisoners. And then I've added some prisoners. One of the characters, the bugbear with the Eye of Vecna, who is the current leader of and new leader of the Kragmaw tribe, that was the tribe of goblins from the first half of from the Lost Mines section of the adventure. He's now the leader of the Kragmaw goblins, and he's turning them into mercenaries instead of bandits and all that kind of stuff. But his story is that his parents were betrayed because they were trying to start a revolution to overthrow the leadership of the Kragmaw tribe, and in order to save him, he was abandoned and ended up being adopted by giants. And now he's back, but his parents are missing. They weren't really killed. They were taken away by these Mind Flayer allies. And so the story that I've built is that his parents are actually like some of the original prisoners that the Mind Flayers captured for all of their experimentations and sacrifices and whatever. And so, one of them was there in that dome. The other one is sort of wherever all the rest of them are for the ritual at the end against the mind flayers and all that kind of stuff. So I've tied that all into to them personally, and then they hopped around some nodes for a while and had wacky adventures. And hey, look, there's a node that has that's wooded and has a couple of spirit nagas on it that like to ask bad riddles or whatever. And then here's a node that has a weird tower on it and a bridge, and in the tower there's the remains of a wizard who was exploring this place, until his head exploded. But his journal's still there. You can get all kinds of lore and whatever. And also there's an aboleth living in the river next to this tower, and the river is weird because it just sort of flows in a circle around the nodule. And then they jumped off to the node that it's a tiny little node. You don't even know there's a node there. You just see a floating cloud, but there's a node in the middle of it, and they found the node in the middle of it, and on that node is like an iron tongue, a foot long iron tongue, and you're like, what the hell is this? So somebody grabs it, and of course, if somebody grabs it, you start hearing whispers about how the tongue must remain hidden, and you get attacked by invisible stalkers, and and that's where we left off last time. Was they grabbed the tongue and they killed off the invisible stalkers, but they didn't want to return the tongue, even though they don't know what it is or what it goes for. And actually, it turns out you need the tongue to free the prisoners when you find the island, the node that has the prisoners on it. But that's neither here nor there. We'll deal with that when the time comes. So they've got a few more nodes to jump around to. The way it works is that it's 2 random nodes are sort of in range at any given time. And then after you've visited at least 5 of the 7 nodes, then there's a random chance that you run into the one that has the mind flayers on it. Then they go to the mind flayers. They stop the ritual where they're trying to use the obelisk pieces to convert Phandelver into a new Illithid empire. And then, yay, we saved the day. We've got the prisoners. Let's go back. We have to swim all the way through that liquid space thing again, and back to eventually work our way back to the real world. But oops, as soon as we get back to the brain dungeon thing, as soon as we come out of the liquid space area, the godlet of Ilvash has sent a part of himself to seek his revenge, and you fight the refraction of Ilvash, the godlet, and that's sort of how the story ends. You fight off the Ilvash, and hopefully you live. Hopefully the prisoners don't all die in the process. I 3D printed a mini for Ilvash because that's a weird enough mini that I don't know that they ever made it. Maybe they did. Maybe it was in the box for that set and whatever. But I just 3D printed it and then gave it to one of my players who's a really good mini painter and had him paint it without telling him what it was. Just sent him some reference art and said, here, paint this for me. Don't tell anybody else. So I got a cool mini for it and whatever. It should be a fun time. My question though is that one of the like you do anytime you run a published adventure, you try to personalize it. You try to bring in the character stories and make their goals and their backgrounds part of the larger story. I've talked about the Bugbear character. His parents are there. I've got that personal connection to him. In this in-game, I don't really have a strong connection to any of the other characters. There was one of the things I did when they first showed up in the brain dungeon is I gave them visions as they passed into the far realm of people who were or have been in that dungeon. And it gave me a chance to sort of introduce some of the NPCs you meet in the dungeon before they met them, so that meeting them would actually be a little more meaningful or whatever. But in some cases, like we have an Eric Coker character, I used it as an opportunity to introduce to him the fact that in a past life, he was an elf who helped actually the Bugbear's parents start the revolution thing, and then when they were given off to the mind flayers, he went off to save them and were captured by the mind flayers and killed, and he was like the first victims in this whole line of issues, and now he's been reincarnated as an Aarakocra and is back. So there's a little bit of a connection there with that character, but everybody else, I don't know. right? I'm not sure how I'm going to connect those characters, and so I'd love to go through some of those characters and ask you for some suggestions on what you think I could do to make it more personal for them. One of them, so I have three that we need to go with. We have the Goliath, we have the Dwarven Paladin, and we have the Asimar worshiper of Odin. Which one do you want to talk about first, anyway?
I don't know. Whichever one you want.
I choose the Goliath.
The Goliath? Okay. So we have a Goliath character who is a Goliath monk, and the story is their Goliath sort of group was connected to a group of, or tribe or whatever, of stone giants. They all sort of lived together, the Goliath and the stone giants. But this character was not the big strong wrestler type like Goliaths in their culture were expected to be. Instead, she was more of an agile person, and thus she was sort of exiled and then went off and learned more dexterous, skillful fighting instead, and became a monk. The storyline for her has been she had these tattoos of like cracks all over her body, and one of the player's goals was to fill those tattoos with like a gold tattoo, and was looking for a tattoo artist to do that kind of stuff and whatever, because the character's name is Kinsakori, and they're trying to playing off of the Japanese broken pottery, filling with gold to fix the crack sort of thing, and going for that thing. And so we actually tied that into the story. I made one of the obelisk pieces be back in there in her old home with the stone giants and Goliaths, and had to fight them off and get the obelisk piece to end sort of the far realm corruption that was happening there. And then she was invited to climb the summit of the mountain and speak with the wise one, and only to discover that the wise one was actually just a vision of her from the future, and sort of commune with herself. She's the wise one all along, sort of is the way the story works. And as a process, the cracks magically started to fill with gold. And I just specifically described it as like started to fill, but there's always room to grow. You can always be more, like you can always go from broken, but you're never truly fixed. You're just starting to fix yourself and to work on yourself and whatever. And so that's been her major storyline. And I haven't had any real strong plans as to how that plays out as we approach the end game.
So immediately I'm thinking about the obelisks, and they were kind of a wasted opportunity, as we've kind of collectively learned recently. But they are tied into like this weird thing with what's the ancient civilization?
Netherese, yeah.
Yeah. And so with her being this weird, like meeting her future self, being kind of woven into this story of essentially time travel, I wonder if maybe the connection isn't the monoliths, where it's like, okay, some timey-wimey issues have come about, and now it's some, version of herself says, hey, you've got to fix this, because otherwise some part of the timeline is going to be messed up. But it would be kind of neat to have then like the cracks in the obelisks be like she's trying to fix them, just like she's trying to fix herself.
I like that. Fix the obelisk. Save the cheerleader, save the world. Fix the obelisk, save the world.
Yes.
Mike, do you have anything? Are you...
I mean, I'll kind of change the question a little bit.
Yeah.
And like, how much is it your problem? Like, if you've got,
I mean, if I just ran it and didn't add anything, didn't add those personal touches, like it would end fine. But I like to,
right. So I mean, on the ending side though, like something that I always bring up my like the 1 year later montage, right?
Yeah, no,
like
I always do that for my epilogue sort of thing.
Yeah, and like I think you'll find they'll bring a story.
Sure.
Like, sure. The good news is one reason I love the 1 year later montage, you don't have to do anything, right? They get the exact ending they wanted.
And
right?
she's already, well, the character's a she, the player's a guy, but they've already started building towards something. Like they bought an old abandoned manor house or whatever in Phandalin with this vision of, I want to open an academy or, training a gym or whatever.
They've got ideas.
No,
right.
I think that I'm not worried about that. But the more I can make connections in the larger story,
I guess right.
The better.
Yeah, I mean, I'm on the life is hard, and if you have if the opportunities show up, I would take them, but I don't know that I would worry. But I don't know. Like
I'm not worried about it. I'm here bouncing ideas to see if there are opportunities that I don't want to miss.
Right. Yeah. And I'm of the I try to wait until I see those opportunities show up.
Sure.
When the players bring some of those hooks. Yeah.
Like for some reason, I don't know that it ever occurred to me that her whole storyline is about fixing her brokenness, and we're dealing with a literal broken obelisk.
Yeah.
And there could be a connection there. That seems like a good opportunity.
Yeah. The other, I mean, I'm a big campfire tale fan too. Like, I don't know if this is a thing that you do. Like, it's almost a miniature version of the 1 year later montage where you have you're all camping and you're all in you're all inside of a big brain in the middle of outer space and you need a rest and you're sitting around wondering how the hell you got here, and your mind flows back to times past, and your brain goes to moments in the past and thoughts of the future. Where do they take you, right? And then you can kind of elicit from them. I always think of the Darkest Dungeon video game, where they have these camps and each character just has one line of how they're feeling right then, and it's a nice way to, again, they kind of hand you the hooks.
Well, and I do. So you can even warn them hey, next session I'm going to offer this campfire tale, so think about what you might be doing. And then they have some time between. They know that it's coming up. They might have some time to think about it themselves. And I start every session with an opening question, and sometimes the opening question is stuff like that. So I don't warn them about it unless it's something I feel like they need to do research for. Some players are better at it than others. Some are more interested in grabbing onto it than others.
Yeah, sure. So,
but everybody's
I never try to call on people who aren't ready because I don't know.
Sure, no. But after
I'm enjoying some water.
After 6 or 7 years of doing it, every player has been able to contribute something. So I know what they can do.
Right. No, I mean, it's a good question though. What are I don't know that I've got enough context of what each of the characters have been doing throughout these sessions, so I don't know that I don't have any specific advice, but I think it's good. It's a good question to ask, right? I always think it's the most important question is what's tying the connections, tying the characters to the game and to each other and everything like that.
So the other ones, the Odin worshipping cleric fighter, that's one. She's got some motivations that's been going on. She was at one point, the whole idea was that she's a Valkyrie in training, and at one point towards the last third of the campaign, she actually received a message from Odin saying, "Hey, your training is complete. You are welcome to return whenever you would like now." And her response was, "No, I think I need to see this through. And I need to make sure that this all, what these people are doing actually goes through successfully." And the response from, it was, of course, from a couple of talking ravens, or the messengers of Odin. And the response from the ravens was good. That was the correct answer. You should want to stay and see this through. And also it helps Odin out because there's some crazy going on out there in the plains, and he's dealing with that and doesn't really have a chance to focus on this right now. So you take care of this. Odin's going to keep an eye on this other thing, which is my sort of layering in hints of a couple of campaigns from now when we're going to deal with Eve of Ruin, with Vecna is out there with shenanigans, and that Odin's keeping an eye on things. So she's got some motivation, but hasn't had anything personal to her background come up in 15, 20 sessions now. Well, 15 sessions now. So if there's ideas about how to bring Odin and Norse and Valkyrie shit into this in-game, bonus points for that too.
Yeah.
I've snuck in when they were in Elithanok, which is the Mind Flayer's city that they go through to open the rift and end up in this place. In the prison in Elithanok, I had her find the dead body of a Valkyrie. So there's hints that at least the other Valkyries have been in the area and have been captured or whatever. So there's potential to sneak something like that in here, but
I've got two ideas.
yep.
One of which is Odin always, sought mystical information. Was, one of his things was like finding these obscure magical secrets or whatever. So that could be one thing where it's like, okay, there's something that the Illithids hid in this, node, or that just happens to be here. That might be something interesting that would be helpful to Odin. And it doesn't have to be like, oh, this is a 9th level spell that you get to cast. It could just be like, no, this is some mystical secret that means nothing to you, but to Odin could be something interesting. Mm-hmm. And then alternatively, on the Valkyr side of things, because Valkyrs are so about like shepherding these warrior souls into this kind of, Valhalla, really. Maybe there's a soul lost somewhere in here that's important to recover.
Part of me wonders if it would be a lot of fun or problematic in the end game for her to get instructions to deal with the character who has the Eye of Vecna. And in the end sort of pit them against each other. The two players are like best friends, so I think they would handle it in like
I'd give them a warning. Or,
yeah, I think so. I think so. Yeah,
give them as player. Yeah, talk to the players instead of the characters.
No, I think so.
They might be totally in.
And I can totally see her being like, I appreciate what you're trying to say and do there, but I gotta let it go, And then what do you do when you turn your back on an order from your god, sort of thing. So,
to me, it seems like it would be a really cool idea to integrate into the 1 year later thing of like make it almost like a Point Break situation where it's like, do you take the shot or do you let him go? And that whether or not that plays out in the game, that's more of a narrative moment of like, no, I've been chasing them for the span of the year, or no, actually, I decided to let them go, and now I'm reckoning with that.
Part of how Eve of Ruin is going to be run, because Eve of Ruin starts at a higher level. It starts at 12 instead of ending at 12, or something like that. Maybe 11.
Yeah, it starts really high level. Yeah.
Part of what I was going to do was give them the opportunity to bring back characters from previous campaigns in sort of the setting, and bring them back into an amalgam of different characters from different campaigns all come together to form a Justice League and go after Vecna, sort of thing, right? And the character with the Eye of Vecna is like, boy, wouldn't it be fun if the guy with the Eye of Vecna, it was like, okay, now I'm going to use this thing to go after the guy, and I don't know that would play out well for him, but it'd be an interesting story, so there is a part of me that's like, but if I have them go head to head and deal with that even 1 year later, and I don't know, we could go a full 1 year later, maybe 6 months later, because the timeline might be such that that's when the Vecna stuff would be going on, but like if I had them play that out, like, do I want to take away that opportunity to have that character show up in Eve of Ruin, because we already told the story about how in the next year they were hunted down and killed in order to get rid of the eye, sort of thing. So, I don't know. There's some things there for me to roll my head around. The last one is the Dwarven Paladin of Dumathoin, the Dwarven god of secrets, who plays fairly like. Some of the hunting out down the obelisk pieces is running through former civilizations dedicated to Dumathoin. So there's been a lot of Dumathoin sort of connections there. It was an artifact of Dumathoin that was actually secretly hiding the Eye of Vecna that was broken open, and so there's been Dumathoin-y stuff. On the other hand, this is also the player that is the least likely to give me a lot of things to play off of. He likes to. I think he is more interested in getting together with people and rolling dice and killing monsters, and is less concerned about sort of building in the backstory. Although he engages in the role play. So like if I didn't do something special for him, I think he'd be okay. But if I do something special for him, like, he'll engage. So. Any quick thoughts on that before we move on?
Yeah, the only thing I have for that is, it doesn't seem like there isn't a lot of space to play with on that. But immediately, I think if you give him a secret to reveal, to just be like, hey, by the way, this whole time, this was a secret, and it would just be a fun thing for everyone to, deal with. If that was, if you could work with that player to be like, hey, do you want to have this like weird twist to your character?
Sure.
That would throw everyone for a loop. And I mean, and that could go a number of different ways, some good, some bad, but that's about the only thing I can think of is that with that secret angle.
Yeah. That gives you some ideas. Okay. Well, I will end my time there because I never quite got my timer started anyway, so I don't know how long it's been. Not that we would have paid attention to it, but there we are. I want to remind folks that if you want to support the show, you can go to patreon.com/The Tome Show, and for as little as $1 a month, help me pay the bills that keeps the show going. And we've had a few new patrons in recent months, and that's been good because the new patronage has been fairly stagnant for a while. So it's been good to get some new blood in and see that there's still people out there listening and supporting. Mike, it's your turn.
Yes.
I hear you have problems.
Yes, challenges. It's yeah. So I have 3 games. I was running a bunch of 5e games.
I thought you had 2 games.
Nope, I have 3. And I was running all 5e games before, and now 2 of my games have switched over to 2 other systems. I have a Dragonbane campaign on my regular Wednesday group, which I love, and everything's that one's all kinds of interesting things happen in my Dragonbane game, but I don't want to talk about that. And I have my current Tales of the Valiant game, which is 5e. That is my Sunday game. That's been a blast. I think they just hit 12th level, maybe 13th level. And they're just getting ready to start. They got 3 big arcs left in that, and that's fun. But the game they want to talk about is my every other week Daggerheart game. So this was originally a D&D 2014 game that went on for almost 2 years. And we've been doing, I guess it had basically been D&D 2014 for this group for as long as we've been doing it, which is basically since COVID. Like this group has been going pretty much every other week since COVID. And it had been on and off before then too, but like back then we were sometimes getting together with them in person. Now we're always online. It is an online game with 6 people, and that's probably the biggest challenge.
6 total or 5 players?
6 players.
6 players.
6 players and me. Yeah. That itself is probably the challenge. A challenge that I had when we were doing the 2014 version was there were a couple players who had kind of big parts of the story that we were following, and a couple people that were pretty quiet for most of the game. Mm-hmm. So as soon as we did Daggerheart, I said, okay, I want to change that dynamic. I don't want 2 people that are basically not doing anything, or right. They're getting a 10, 1/10 of the spotlight.
Try to avoid the main character dynamic.
Yeah, a little bit. Right. Just make sure equal spotlight time, and nobody disagrees with this. Everybody recognizes that they want to have this, so there's no real challenge there. But doing it is the challenge. Daggerheart itself doesn't have an initiative system, right? Like the whole point is anybody can kind of jump in and do anything. I said, well, that is not going to work because we had one that had an initiative system, and it resulted in a big shift in the spotlight in different directions.
Sure.
So I said, okay, we're not going to do that. Instead, we're going to put in a couple of things. One is that I'm going to be more strict about doing almost a Shadow Dark style walk down the list of characters in the Discord order to kind of ask what everybody's doing, mm-hmm. right? Shadow Dark's initiative is always on, and you're always going around the table. Like that's their technique. And then when we're in combat, I wanted to use what I thought would work well with Daggerheart, which is a popcorn style initiative, or also known as Balsera style initiative, or elective action order, which is the official name from it. And this is a technique that Evil Hat uses and put into Fate Enhanced, or Fate Enhanced, whatever the latest version of Fate is. And the way that one works is each player designates who goes after them and then takes their turn. And that way everybody's kind of bouncing from one to the other, mm-hmm. right? And, one little trick of it is instead of having the person go and then say who goes, they instead say who goes next before they take their turn. That way the next person is paying attention and ready to go
and
with their turn. The only hard part is getting people to remember to pick somebody before they take their turn.
Right.
So we usually have a little bit of like, Sarah, it's your turn. And actually, I'm picking on Sarah, but Sarah, Shiva's been fine with it. But like, and then Sarah will start her turn. Oh, wait, before you go, who's going next? And she goes, Paul will go after I go, whoever, right?
Sure.
But people have been generally fine with that, right? And it kind of bounces around nicely. And a little trick that I have done is I have a list of all of the characters, and I'm putting X's on them whenever they have gone, and putting an N for whoever they said is next. So if a turn takes a little while, I'll remember who they said, because I'll forget if I don't do it.
Sure.
And I can also say everybody has gone at this point,
So
or
start over,
or Paul hasn't had a turn yet. Maybe you should pick Paul. And I can start to recommend. I can tell people who's left, so that everybody's getting a turn in order. Because with 6 people, if you miss somebody one round, it's like 25 minutes, right? Like it could be a while. So so that went in place. But what happened is people got frustrated. So people got frustrated with the kind of, even outside of combat, giving people turns would have like somebody wanted, people want to jump in and want to do things.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm being like, no, you can do thing when I come around. I'll come back to you, but we got 3 other people, right? And that got frustrating, because there was this feeling that like people aren't interacting either organically with the story, but also not interacting with each other at all. That because everybody's in a turn, there's never like this 2 or 3 people at a time.
Right.
So last session, we all talked about it, and we came up with a couple of different things of like, okay, we'll also kind of do the popcorn style even outside, but it could involve even more people. So you could say, I'm going to go to the Mushroom Grove.
Sure.
And we could say, okay, who else is going with you to the Mushroom Grove? And they could say, well, these 2 others are going with me. And then we say, okay, we have a little subgroup of those 3.
It's a little bit like Fiasco, where you take turns establishing a scene, but other people can be in that scene.
Yeah, exactly. Right. And because of the narrative nature of Daggerheart, I think that works well. So we're trying that out. But the reality is, like, there is a harsh physical reality, right? There's a physics problem, which is 6 people is a lot of people.
Sure.
And online doesn't work well with a lot of dynamic interaction.
Yeah.
Because people talk over one another. There's lag.
Yeah.
There's the lack of body language. There's all kinds of stuff that happens when you're playing online. Make that difficult.
Did you consider it all? So Daggerheart doesn't have an initiative system. It does have an optional.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that's the token thing.
The action tokens or whatever.
Yeah, and that's fine too. I kind of feel like the thing that I'm doing with, the problem with the token thing is like you get 3 tokens, and that means somebody could still dominate for a long time.
Sure, but then they got
and somebody else could be sitting on their tokens, right? So for me, it's like the idea of kind of working through rounds. At least having that like list of like, okay, here's your gun.
You're basically doing the token system, except everybody gets one.
Exactly.
Token.
Only it's 1 token, right?
Yeah.
Right, and that's been working out. So that's been a challenge. The other one is, I made life hard for myself in multiple ways, right? And I knew it. It's like, A, we're all going to learn a brand new system,
right?
Daggerheart, right? B, Daggerheart is a really crunchy system, right? Like it is not like I've been chatting a lot about it on Discord. I've been chatting a lot about it on my show from time to time. Yeah. And people are like, you hate it. And I'm like, I don't hate it. I'm just trying to figure it out. I'm trying to understand how this thing works.
It is I had this conversation, I think, with you actually a couple years ago about Torg. Like Torg Eternity is also an incredibly crunchy system, but it's also more narrative focused
than
D&D is. So it's crunchier than D&D, but it's more interested in the story than D&D,
Yeah, right. And what's funny to me, and you look at like the list of influences for the game. This is kind of the other thing that I'm working through, which is why, I was like, I got lots of problems. Well, my number one problem is probably that making sure that, I'm balancing 3 things, that people have enough screen time, people have enough spotlight time that they feel like they're getting a good opportunity to do stuff. They're interacting with one another, interacting with the world, and we actually get through a session, right? Because one thing that was immediately apparent is when we were giving everybody more spotlight time, everything took longer, right? The whole game escalated, and I remember I was looking through my old campaign notes, and I was like, I wrote up what I thought was going to be 1 session's worth of stuff, and it lasted 3 sessions. And the next time I wrote like a little bit less, and it was like 2.5 sessions. And I was like, wow, I have no idea. The pace, like I'm getting through like one scene, right? Or like maybe two in 3 hours, right?
So
Like
it's a little bit like running 4E, where one combat would be an entire
only
session.
It's not even combat, right? This is like
it's just everything.
Anything, right? It's the whole thing. So that is probably the biggest struggle. But then there's a couple of then there's parts of me kind of bouncing on the system, and my frustrations are like, I don't think it's safe to say that I love it, but I'm definitely of the like, I really want to love it. Okay. Right? Like there's the DNA that it's built from are many things that I really love.
Yeah.
But I also feel like it's a kitchen sink system. I feel like they didn't make any choices about what to not put in. Mm-hmm. And so it's got everything in there. And it's like, they talk about how their influences are everything from Powered by the Apocalypse to Flea Mortals, right? And 4th edition D&D. And you're like, yep, you got both of those in there, right? Mm-hmm. Like you have the duality dice system of Daggerheart is very much a Powered by the Apocalypse system. But also you have the incredible monster crunchy tactical stuff going on with Flea Mortals, right? The monsters. And it's like, we love 4th edition style monster types, right? Of the, minion, normals, elites, and solos, which I think a lot of people were like, but we're going to have 10 of them instead of 4. And you're like, really? You need 10 different monster types? Like, and it's because they wanted to combine both the monster roles and the monster types together into one. But now you have monsters like brutes that count as 4, and solos count as 5, and leaders count as 3, and standards and lurkers and range count as 2, and minions count as 1. And like, you made it way more complicated than 4th edition had it, right? Like, 4th edition, I understood the math that elite was worth 2 normals. There was 5 minions to a normal. An elite was 2 normals, and a solo was 4 normals. Like, I remember it today, and it's been 10 years, right? And I could get through that, but it was like they, a lot of the design of the game is they liked an idea and didn't understand it and put it in there anyway. And I joke of like, I can't wait for Daggerheart 2. Right? Like,
right. Is that what Crawford and Perkins were doing? Is cleaning it up?
I don't know what the hell they're doing. But I did have to wonder, like, I really wonder what Crawford and Perkins said when they were like, they're there. And it's like, they look at the game and go, I don't know. But and that's one you're like, I mean, I know the designers had designed games before,
right?
But they're not Jonathan Tweet and Rob Hainsel, right? Like they haven't been designing games for 30 years. And so like they took this is the other one that bugs me. And what I'm trying to do is do my lazy DM, try to figure out the easier ways to kind of manage this stuff. But one of them is like they have abstract distances, which is something that I love in my games, right? I'm perfectly happy to have like range bands, but they have 5 of them. And they have 3 ranged bands that are all within 10 feet. And you're like, that's not abstract. That's
at that point, you just put it on a map.
Right. It's even more, it makes squares more abstract than that, right? Because, like
3 bands within 10 feet is, you're
3, right. Like they, so what they have is they have melee, which means you're right up against somebody, very close, which is within 10 feet, and then close, which is 10 to 30 feet. And you're like, that means that, you could theoretically be inside of 3 ranged bands at the same time if you're standing at the 10-foot mark or something like that. Not quite, but and it's like, how do you describe that in theater of the mind, right? Like, how do you? I was just writing about it, not before the show. I'm writing an article for my blog about it, and I was like, if creature A is very near to creature B and creature C is very near to creature B, is creature A also very near to creature C? Right. And the answer is like, I don't know. And, it's like, I guess you got to just make a rule. Right. And the reason why they have it, again, it's that kitchen sink thing. I'm picking on it because it's like, it's easy to pick on, but there's a reason. And the reason why is they said, we want reach to matter. We want weapon reach to matter. And weapon reach doesn't matter if you don't have very close. Right. Like if you want a halberd to be a different range than a longsword, you have to have a band in your abstract distance that accounts for that. Now, there's, of course, other better ways, in my opinion, to do it, which is have the halberd do something else in a narrative sense without having a range band for it. But so it is what it is. So then what I'm trying to do is say, okay, I've been writing about how to handle abstract distance for literally 10 years. I can try to figure out what house rules I can put in place to account for this, because I run pure theater of the mind in this group, right? Like
Sure.
we don't use a map of minis. We don't use a map or tokens or anything in this group.
That makes online play
typically done
easier.
zones. Yeah, it does, right? And so I've been using zones and zone. The group kind of bounced against zones a little while, and whenever I have complicated zone systems where it's like there are 4 different zones, each one is close to the others, so you can kind of move from one to the other. It's always like, well, which zone is which? And then I always get the enable. Can I be in 2? I just want to be straddling across 2 zones. And you're like, no, you're in a zone or you're not in a zone, right? You don't get to be half and half. I want to be kind of in that zone, but not really. I'm like, no, that's So I think my answer, and so I'm trying to figure out like my answer to that, and I think my answer is like I don't care about melee and very close. They're the same thing. Right, I'm just going to smush those 2 together, and if the player has a really good reason to be one or the other, they can tell it to me.
And it seems like the point of close is like you're close. If you're within close range, with a movement, they can get to you and still do something.
And that's the thing. Like with a movement, you can get anywhere within close anyway, including melee or very close. So there was only one circumstance I ever saw where it was like where the difference between melee and very close mattered. And it was glass snakes who had a reaction that when you hit them, they did damage back within melee. And that meant if you could hit them from very close, you wouldn't get hit by that stuff.
Sure.
But otherwise, a monster can move into melee with you on their turn anyway. So if you're hitting them like, oh, I'm going to stay away from them. I'm going to be very close, but hit them with my halberd. Or there's a giant kin, right? One of the kins is a giant, and the giant has reach on everything. And you could say like, okay, well, the giant is not next to it, but they're going to be. As soon as I move the monster, they're going to be next to you anyway. So it kind of doesn't matter. Anyway, so I'm trying to noodle through like simple house rules that are easy for everybody to understand, that doesn't take agency away from the things our characters have, that I can describe without going insane trying to describe narrative distance.
Anytime there's a rule system that requires that much immediate thought into how to house rule it to make it work, makes me wonder whether it's a system.
Well, I'll tell you this. Like this is when we're like, old man Mike Shea's got issues, right? Is people love it. Like people in my Discord server love it.
Okay.
And so many people love it. So it's not like it's, I'm not saying like I'm the one who found the thing and everyone now hates it, right? Like people don't care. Like the answer is they're just, now a lot of them are playing on maps, right? And it works great on a map because you don't worry about these distance issues.
So I think because it's being published by Darrington Critical Role, right?
Sure.
They get a lot of credit for that, for being.
Well, I think they get a lot of attention to it, but I don't. If people were really bouncing off of it, we'd all know, right? If it didn't work, we'd all know.
Sure.
Like they're not gonna make it happen. And I think one of the reasons why people do like it so much is because, like me, you can find the game you want it to be in it.
But I think
that if you love crunchy Flea Mortals 4th edition D&D, it's in there. If you like Powered by the Apocalypse crazy storytelling, it's in there. But it also, right? It's got all the stuff.
And I don't know this. I'm not talking to that community much, but it feels like because it's from them, people are willing to give it more of a shot. If it was a random third-party publisher that nobody had ever heard of on the scene, people might bounce off it more.
Right. Yeah, because like I think, and there's probably a little bit of resentment in me that I'm like, I like 13th Age better. Right. Like I think 13th Age is doing the same kind of thing. It's a D20 crunchy game that's got abstract distances and heavy storytelling elements, only it knew what it wanted to do.
Right.
And it focused and now it's refined. They've been working on it for 10 years. And they have a new version of it, right, that I haven't played. And it's got problems too. Like I'll pick on 13th Age as well.
We just had Rob Hinsu on the show.
Oh, did you? Oh, he's so great. He's a mentor and a friend and mentor of mine.
I'm debating the possibility of doing a running ongoing show where Rob and Dan Dillon come on and do some encounter design. That's
cool.
what we
did. The two of them know each other? I didn't know the two of them.
They didn't know each other until I had them both on that episode. And at the end of them, both of them were like, "Hey, this is fun. Maybe we should do it on regularly." I'm like,
"Oh, they're great.
We can make that happen."
That'd be great.
But what I really learned,
but I still come back to I think like Critical Role and Critical Role and Darrington Press's attention brought to it certainly brought more people to it. But I also think the game is good.
No, I think there's a lot.
I think people are. It's not just like
I bought it twice, so yeah.
Yeah, right. And that's the other thing. It's a fantastic product, right? Just from a physical product standpoint, it's great. But it's just me noodling through these. The other one that I have an issue with is like solo monsters. I was actually just before here doing a bunch of math and spreadsheets to try to figure out how to make a real solo. Because it's like, well, they have solos. They're not really solos because according to their own counterbalance, they only count as 5 and you can have up to 17 points in a battle. So that means you can fit 3 solos in one battle.
Right.
Those aren't solos. That, a solo is supposed to be 1. And it's like, and you can't have, I think there's only a couple of monsters that are actually true, honest to God, you only face one of these in a fight and nothing else.
Right.
And I'm like, I think like, I'm putting my Forge of Foes hat on and I'm like, I think you can just give them 30 hit points and they'll become a solo because the action economy is so different.
Sure.
Because they only act when the characters either fail a roll or roll with fear.
Yeah.
Which means that's the other weird thing is the action economy is so bananas.
Yeah.
Because you could have 100 dudes and they're not acting any more often than if you had 6 or 1.
Or 1.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah. The monsters will only attack as often as, or the environment or whatever will only act as often as the players are rolling with fear or failing a roll. So I'm that changes like how to kind of understand how monsters work. And I've been like decomposing the math to be like, what exactly would like how many hit points per character is a battle supposed to have is one of the things I'm trying to figure out.
So what I've really,
it's pretty wild.
Not to make everything about me in the podcast, but what I've really learned is I need to reach out to you to schedule, because Tracy and I are going to do an episode about Daggerheart in a couple of weeks here, and I'm still looking for a panel. So
I at least have experience having run it.
You have more experience than Tracy and I have read it, but we haven't run it. So
and I think it matters. Yeah,
I think it does too.
I'm only apprehensive because I would try to find also somebody who really has run it and loves it.
No,
right? It doesn't,
right.
Who can. Who can counteract my old man cynicism.
If you've got suggestions, we'll talk outside of the recording. So I'd love to get some suggestions on who to reach out to.
And that's what I'm finding. Like the people that I'm seeing that are playing it are not just critters, right? These are people who have been playing like tactical RPGs for a while and love it, right? And lots of people from lots of different backgrounds. People who are old school gamers are playing it and love it. Right, I'm seeing a lot like things you wouldn't expect. Right, groups you wouldn't expect that are grabbing on board are grabbing on it. So I like I said, I think it's really there. And I think for me, it's just like I have kind of ways I want a game to operate, and I feel like it's really close to being there, and I just need to do it.
I can see that. I can see that.
Yeah, because like I'm not giving crap to Dragonbane, and Dragonbane uses meters, right? Like it's not abstract at all. But I'm like, well, I understand how to do a system that's got meters, right? Like I know how to do that. And so that's it's been interesting. And then on top of that challenge, I also have the challenge of the story. I'm kind of doing Beast Feast, so they have their campaign threads. Yeah, the campaign. I forget what they call them. But yeah, they're campaign thingies.
Yeah,
that they have in the book.
Kind of described the
and we had sort of this kind of dark fighting the two heads of Demogorgon campaign, and so they were like, it'd be nice to have like a more lighthearted one, and I'm like, sure. And I thought Beast Feast sounded like a good lighthearted one.
Beast Feast is the one that's kind of Delicious in Dungeon.
It's the Delicious in Dungeon.
Yeah.
And I grabbed a lot of the Delicious in Dungeon ideas, and I grabbed a lot of stuff from the Beast Feast thing. And I think we are, there's definitely like more lighthearted stuff. There's this whole kind of fun franchise of inns that exist in this massive mega dungeon that's underneath the land called Berries. And they're always finding like, oh, so this is Berries in the Shallows, but there's actually a Berries in Twilight that's one level down. If you could bring these spices to the Berries in Twilight, they'll love you forever there. And it's like, when do we actually get to meet Barry? Like, oh, no one's seen Barry in a while, but we're all paying for the franchise, right? Like, so there's lots of fun things, but I haven't gotten into the cooking at all. And I'm afraid, like, I'm looking at the cooking rules and knowing how the rest of this group works. If we started cooking, that will be the whole game. Like, that'd be the whole episode.
I mean, that's what they want to do. Fine.
I get, but I don't know that that's what I want to do. I still like the crawling through dungeons and fighting monsters part of this game.
You chose this campaign.
I did, but it's also got a big dungeon full of monsters. So like, there's lots to do. But I did have somebody who was like, we haven't actually done like any of the cooking aspect. I did things where they found weird crystals, and then the crystals turned that you can melt them down into a sweet, spicy honey. Nice. And so they were putting them on biscuits and stuff like that. But also, like, I'm not a cook, and I don't know anything about how to make ingredients. So
well, we both went
that's where it's like those are all the stacks of challenges that I've given myself. Online game, which already has its challenges. 6 players, which already have its challenges. Making sure everyone's getting the spotlight, which is a challenge. Daggerheart, which is a whole new system that I'm trying to, which is a pretty complicated, different system that I'm trying to understand. And then a campaign that, is really thin and that I have to really build out.
Yeah.
That's stretching my GM muscles, I'll certainly say.
Yeah, well, it's good for you. But
I think so. I'm learning a lot.
we have both successfully, I think, gone about twice over our time.
Oh, did we?
So we've been recording for almost an hour. We should probably let Ish have
We should.
something to say here.
Thank you for letting me share.
No, I think that it was interesting, and I enjoyed hearing it. I want to remind people, if you want to find the Tome Show on various social medias, look for the Tome Show. We're on Facebook. We still have a Twitter account, although it hasn't posted anything in years. And I am Squatch on the various social medias, SQUACH. Ismael is Elven Wizard King or Lorathorn, depending on where you're at.
Since the last time I double checked, I'm Elven Wizard King everywhere.
Except on the Discord.
That's right. I need to you can do that.
And Mike is not on social media. Don't look for him there. Go to slyflourish.com.
I'm on the only social media, email.
Yes. Go to slyflourish.com, sign up for the newsletter.
Slyflourish.com.
So
podcast, newsletter.
Go do all those things. If the floor is yours, I'm going to put 15 minutes on the clock so we can ignore that again and just talk all night.
That's fair. Yeah.
You get the next hour.
I am, and I'm going to go a little out of order because of how we've, what we've talked about so far, but I do have a Dagger Heart game every other week on Thursday, so I wouldn't call myself.
Hear your experience.
I still haven't played yet, so I think we'll play this week. But I made a character. It took like 10 minutes, so at least from that side of things, it was pretty easy. But to speak to kind of what you were going from and kind of your experiences of running it, I'm maybe going to suggest seeing if the players are willing to do stuff on the off time. So like, having conversations, writing up, maybe they're already doing that. I don't know. But like having them, giving them the homework of doing things on the off time so that they can express, because it sounds like everyone's coming at this with a lot of really great energy, but they're just taking up all that space and it's making it hard. So I have in the past had like middling levels of success with that, but I don't know, that might be something that might be helpful, as if they're like doing some of those fiction-y type things on the side so that they feel like they're...
I find that some players engage with that more than others, and then it becomes a spotlight issue. It starts exacerbating that issue that Mike was describing, and that some players are getting more spotlight because they have the time, or they're just more motivated to engage outside of game time.
I think that's okay though. Like out of time, like if you want to, whatever you want to do. It's not taking the time from someone else, right? That's the real issue. Is you want to make sure that other people are getting their chance to do stuff.
Yeah.
That's a good idea. Yeah,
but it's real hard not to let that leak into the game. Like, oh, this person is giving me all this stuff, and so now I'm focusing on that, and I'm ignoring other people.
Right.
I mean,
sure.
Maybe that's a me problem, but I don't think so. It's just me.
Well, and in my brain, there's like ways to temper that, right? Like, hey, you got all this time on the off time, so now let's let the people who didn't do that. But I mean, that could spectacularly backfire. I've had that happen. So that's a thing. But that aside, I'll open up. Since the last time we met, which wasn't that long ago, I actually gave up on 2 games.
Oh,
which is, I think, like a personal record for me of like in such a short span of time. And I kind of forget where we were, like in my realm of what I talked about then. But in short, my Friday game, I was running a very short Wrath and Glory game, and I love Wrath and Glory, and I love that group of people. But our attendance dropped to 20% because I have my awesome spreadsheet and I track attendance, and we just were not meeting. And some of that was attributed to like people were getting married. There were people doing travel. The holidays obviously had a lot to do with that. But I just kind of saw the pattern continuing of just being like, hey, we're not going to meet often enough for me to like care. And like, honestly, it just became an issue of I don't want to drag myself halfway across town on a Friday after I'm tired from work, and then maybe not play or like, just get ready to do that and then be told sometime during the intermittent day of like, it's too cold outside. It's like, I wish I could say that. I wish I could say that it was too cold, but I feel way too obligated as a dungeon master to
Yeah.
just up and cancel because I don't feel like it, except to say that I can cancel indefinitely because I don't feel like it on the grander scale. So that sounds a little like curmudgeonly, maybe, but I think I'm in that time of my life where I'm like, life's too short to dedicate.
You run enough games that I think you get the latitude to pick which ones you're going to run and which ones you're not.
Yeah. I think I built up like my game mastering social security to where now I can just cash those checks and I don't have to do as much. So I gave up on my Friday game. The Thursday game I was running, and so now I'm playing alternatingly. But before I was running one game, and then the next week I would play in a game.
Right.
The feelings weren't as hard on that one. It wasn't like I had gotten just exhausted, although just exterior factors were a thing. But what I had found was when we would get together for the Thursday game that I ran, we had a group of people who were like, we want our game earlier because we get tired and we just want to go to sleep by the time the game is over. And then another group of people who were like, hey, I can't start any sooner than this because dinner is like a non-negotiable. And basically once dinner's done and like I shovel food in my face, I show up. And if you ask me to show up earlier, then that's going to be a stressor. And so I was essentially trying to run a game. And this was doing like a homebrew Savage Worlds game. But I was trying to run a game in the span of an hour and a half, which includes just bullshitting and, having fun and just kind of talking it up and then trying to fit a game in there at the same time. So every other week we maybe got like 50 minutes of like actually doing the game. And it just felt like we were really getting nowhere. And it wasn't necessarily like I'm fed up with these guys, I want to stop. It was more like I just don't see a way forward. But the positive thing is I stopped that. They were really gracious about it. They didn't give me a hard time. The Friday group didn't either, but that's a different story. But the Thursday group immediately was like, hey, well, we could still play. And, we still got a group here. There were plenty of people that were very interested in running a game, and they went to Daggerheart. And because I wasn't pivotal, I wasn't the game master, they could then play every week instead of every other week, which I encouraged. I'm like, that's great, y'all please do. And they invited me to just play on the days that I could, which is to say the Thursdays that I wasn't playing in the other game. So that's great, and I'm going to give that a shot. And it feels like something that I can kind of dedicate enough time to, whatever that ends up being, and they can kind of, adjudicate their schedules as. So
have you been playing in that game yet?
No, okay. I made a character last Thursday, even though it was like my time to play in the separate game. They let me just hop in for a second after the first game was done, and I just made a character real quick, and we kind of talked through things. Ironically, I used a character from a Break campaign that didn't quite get off the ground, and I didn't get to play, so I was just like, I'm going to import this character from Break, which probably helped make the process a little faster. But that took very little time, and then I'm going to play for the first time. They played for the first time last week, but I'll join them this week, and I'll get to see what all this Daggerheart business is. To the conversation earlier, I was skeptical, but everything I've heard about Daggerheart from people who are really excited about it did not turn me off. Sometimes I'll hear people talk about, like, for instance, Pathfinder 2nd Edition. Seems like a great game, but like everything about it, I was like, whoa, that's too much math for me. And that's fine. You like it, whatever, but it's just not my deal. But like what I've heard of Daggerheart has not pushed me away. Now, who knows? I might play it on Thursday and decide maybe I'm not a Daggerheart person, but I'm excited to try it. Yeah. I want to like it. So I'll have more to report whenever we happen to get together again. So those were 2 games I dropped. We're still kind of on a hiatus on my Monday game, which is my one-on-one game with my fiance. Just life has gotten in the way, and it's kind of indicative of some other stuff that's been going on. Going on to the Tuesday game, I've got a Savage Worlds game where I'm using the Iron Gods adventure path from Pathfinder. Love their setting, not so much their systems. Again, I've kind of talked about why, but really fascinated on trying to get Iron Gods to fit into Savage Worlds. They've already done a couple of their adventure paths as Savage Worlds kind of adventure paths, like fitting it into that framework. So I'm using what's there to try and make this work, but people have been having a ton of fun with it. Wednesday, I am running an old World of Darkness Demon the Fallen game. We talked about that briefly last time, where they're essentially like these demonic forces who have come back from being exiled by God because they used to be angels, and so they're trying to reckon with the modern world. But
we talked about that. Mike, are you familiar with Demon the Fallen?
Mm-mm.
It's in the World of Darkness setting, so it's with Vampire the Masquerade and Werewolf the Apocalypse and Mage the Awakening and all the others.
Yeah. And I've tried to set every World of Darkness game that I've run in Denver because I live here and it's just easy to slot everything in. But for instance, there was an old rubber factory that I used to drive by every morning, and it was decommissioned when I moved here, and then they eventually knocked it all down. But we're playing back in 2013 when it was still standing, and people were talking about like the demolition of it, and just adding fun little things like that, even for people who, because I do have players who don't live in Denver or have never been there. It's just kind of fun on drawing on those like little bits of geography to be like a character in the campaign, to be like, oh no, this is 2013 Denver, and these are like the wacky idiosyncrasies of it. So that's been a ton of fun, and people are taking big bites out of the storyline, and I'm super happy about that. So Saturday is a Savage Worlds Eberron game, drawing heavily from like there's a I can't remember his name, but there's an author who took a lot of time and effort to translate Eberron into Savage Worlds and is like somehow licensed it both through Pinnacle and Wizards of the Coast. So he's got a whole product out there for it. But I think I talked about this either last time or the time before, but I'm trying to run it as like a generational game where one game is 100 years in the past. The next campaign essentially is 50 years in the past. And then the third generation would be the so-called current day of Eberron. So we're winding down on the first generation of it, and it's been a lot of fun. I think I have a lot of the same issues of trying to get certain people in the game to maybe have a little bit more buy-in. Some people are way bought in and take up a lot of time and space, and some people kind of, will utter a few sentences every game. And I've tried to run a survey, as I tend to do for some of my longer-lived games, and exactly the people I thought would answered, and then the people who didn't have not said a word. And so I stopped trying. So I'm trying to figure out how to get them engaged, but maybe it's a problem I don't have to solve for because nobody's complaining, but my obsessive nature is always like, no, I can make this better. I can get people more bought in. But again, maybe I just need to let sleeping dogs
It's like
out.
me with the Dwarf Paladin player. Like I'm constantly trying to figure out ways to get him more engaged and engage with the story and the setting and whatever. But also, he's having fun, so maybe I don't need to mess with what's working,
Yeah, and I think I've had a handful of situations in the past where I've ignored things like that, thinking like, hey, as long as nobody's complaining, it's fine, and then getting bamboozled, somewhere in the procession of it, of like, hey man, how come you didn't notice that I wasn't having fun? Or hey, like, there's something about this that's bugging me and I can't describe it. And then just being like, well, I guess maybe I should have paid more attention, but we'll see. Hopefully that goes well. But I have had some conversations like in the affirmative of just talking to people and being like, hey, is there anything you want to see more of? Are there things that you're kind of drawn to or anything like that? But I think I just need to have like one or two more conversations like that with some players I haven't gotten to have that time with. To maybe just at least feel better about it, at least just feel like I've done my due.
Mm-hmm.
Then finally, I've got my a brand new heavy gear game, and I just want to show you, since I mean people listening to this won't be able to really understand, but this is the Heavy Gear Fourth Edition book.
Nice.
It is like massive.
Heavy gear.
Yes, yes, it is. I tried to run a game of it recently, like in the last, I don't know, 6 months, and it kind of fizzled out. I wasn't super happy with the way that it went, but it was fine. We played, I want to say, like 20 sessions. It was a start and a finish. I didn't feel like I necessarily abandoned it, but this is not just another attempt, but I've brought in a brand new roster of people that I've kind of recruited from across the internet, which was kind of fun to do. I haven't done in a really long time. And so, yeah, we just played our first game, and from kind of failing forward on that first heavy gear attempt, I feel way more comfortable with this one. And so I'm feeling more confident about it. But it's interesting because my first attempt at heavy gear sounded really similar to what you were talking about, Mike, about the your kind of experience with Daggerheart, and feeling like I'm not gelling with these rules enough to keep like this large roster of people kind of engaged. And some people were not so much narratively taking up space, but they understood the rules so much better than I did because they just gelled with the system instantly. And so I was having large amounts of frustration of like being corrected very regularly, but like in a kind way. No one was ever like pushing their glasses up and going like, you got that rule wrong. But instead they were telling me like, oh no, this rule is actually like that. But I just had, I mean, that part of it is separate from what your experience was, but I just had this complete lack of connection to the game because I didn't feel confident enough in kind of the mastery of the system that I felt like I was doing it justice. But now I do. And so that's good. But that means that I'm down to 4 games. I think I have not had that few since probably February of 2020, if that says anything.
That's a respectable number of games. It's okay to maintain that.
Yeah, and I want to hold on to those tight. I want to make sure that I'm giving those due. And that was part of my decision to drop 2 games.
Right.
To just give
it's
games.
Better to have fewer games that are really good than barely keeping up with 7 games. So are you still occasionally running? You were running a one-on-one game with your fiance at one point. Is that still?
Yeah, that's the one on Monday, and it's just been on hiatus. And that's just life. You know, we're of course making plans to get married, and there's other kind of considerations, and it isn't the kind of thing to where it's like, oh, we'll never play this again, but we've just kind of decided like, hey, we're going to shelf this for a minute and we'll get back to it.
You could totally start the campaign up on the honeymoon. I think that would be apropos, you know?
Yeah.
Bring your dice.
And it would be really funny to just like start the honeymoon and be like, okay, let's pull out our laptops and go over the notes that we've taken. And do you remember what happened last time? No? Okay, let's try and make instructions.
Or even better, the campaign re-begins at the reception. And you know the favors that you have for the guests or little tubes of dice, and everybody can sort of play an NPC in it for that one session. That'd be killer.
Doing what is essentially like an escape room D&D session of just like, come into my campaign with no prior knowledge would be hilarious. Probably lose some friends though.
And with a bunch of people who, you know, I can only imagine the not only friends but family that have no connection to gaming, and that I forced them into that thing because it's my day, damn it. So you're gonna play my game.
I know at least 2 or 3 people for whom that would be their own personal hell of just being thrust into that situation.
Right on. All right. Well, thank you for sharing. And you successfully went overtime the least, so you win the prize today. So.
Yay.
So that has been myself, Jeff Greiner, Ismael Alvarez, Mike Shea, talking about our games. So that's where we're gonna leave it off.
I don't know why I'm waving. I'm waving like they're going to be able to see it.
Yeah, I
and
know.
really, it's just I guess the two of you. I would like
Yeah.
the two of you to know. Thank you for a fine conversation.
Yep, it's been a good conversation. I always enjoy.
And can I bring up one thing? I know I'm interrupting you.
You can bring up all of the things. It's your show.
Ismael, like I heard it because I've heard this before, where like I was like doing my rant about Daggerheart, and then people are like, I don't know if I want to play it anymore. I'm like, no, that's like the last reaction I want from my nonsense. Like, I love to explore the thing, and it feels like I'm picking, but it's like
if you want to hear,
it's cool.
More of Mike's very thorough and very positive thoughts and opinions about Daggerheart. Listen to the episode that we're going to record in a couple of weeks, where he's definitely going to be there, and we'll do our little discussion about Daggerheart. So,
and no worries, because nothing that you said put me off of it. Like I'm so excited to try it out, and I'm like,
it's cool. It's got a lot of cool going on there. People love it.
There's enough interesting things going on that like all of the concerns that you had were the things that came up with me as well reading it. So at least that's validating that my read is somewhat accurate, right? To the point that it's like, I don't know if I want to run a campaign of this, but boy, there's a lot of cool ideas I can rip off and make into house rules in my D&D games. So yeah, there's a lot of cool stuff to play around with there. But anyway, that's been us talking about our games, helping each other out, doing all those kinds of things. If you want to find this or more brilliant Tome Show shows, go to thetomeshow.com. And thanks for joining me, guys. That's not how we end things. Say goodnight, guys.
Good night.